A very good afternoon to all of you, all the participants of the 2-week refresher course in social sciences and humanities that has been organized by the Teaching Learning Center of Ramanujan College, University of Delhi. I'm very grateful and thankful to the organizers for having invited me to make this presentation. It's a privilege to talk to all of you, all the teachers, my friends across the country, in places probably where I've never been before, and in some ways connecting with you from here, from my home, and speaking to you, sharing with you some of my ideas is indeed a privilege. And again, I thank the organizers for inviting me. The topic for today's lecture or discussion, talk, call it what you will, I understand has been suggested by the expert who is advising the committee which is looking after this 2-week refresher course, which is Professor Ujjwal Kumar Singh of the Department of Political Science of University of Delhi. So it is his kind of idea, and I'm again very touched and also kind of overwhelmed by the idea that he should suggest that such a lecture or such a discussion to happen, and that I should be a part of it. So my thanks to Professor Ujjwal Singh for again suggesting my name and asking me to interact with all of you. So I'd like to begin my presentation by telling you briefly that what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through some very important works of art. As a social scientist, as a teacher of humanities, and as a teacher of English literature specifically, I have had a long time interest in art, both Indian and Western art, or art anywhere in the world. Art interests me, fine arts, sculpture, fine arts painting, and as well as crafts across the world. They interest me, and I always see this from a sociological, historical, or often political point of view, and try to understand and analyze the role of the visual arts in society, and that also is a part of my interest in cinema and photography, and of course music, which as you know comes along with it. So today I try to kind of engage with you with this idea as to how we often how we can use paintings and photographs, paintings in this lecture to kind of uh, 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 go into analyze and understand some of the important ideas and thoughts that are taking place, or that we are teaching, or that we are interested in. So this is what I'm going to do, and for that I'd like to share my screen, which is a PowerPoint presentation, and I'll take you by those slides, and we'll discuss this. Now that you can see the PPT, of course we are the platform that is, of course, the Teaching Learning Center of Ramanujan College, and we are in this towards the end of your 2-week refresher course. Then we come to the topic of today's discussion, which is the interface of arts and social sciences and humanities. As you all know, the word interface means it's a surface which is formed because of the common boundaries between two bodies or two spaces. Okay, so when two different spaces, bodies, ideas kind of merge, we have an interface. So we are looking at two different interfaces today to one single body. We are looking at the interface between fine arts, some examples of paintings with social sciences, that and the study of humanities. That takes me to an important idea that we as teachers are very much engaged with in nowadays, which is the idea of interdisciplinarity, or the multidisciplined approach towards what we teach and towards how we understand things. Now, I personally believe that when we go into arts, maybe painting or sculpture or culture or any aspect of photography, cinema, it always helps us to get into to have a way into our teaching, our pedagogy of our social sciences. It gives us an entry point, which makes our pedagogy a little bit more interesting. More so, I think, today, because if we are going to engage our teachers, our students in kind of what we think is what we are doing now is online teaching or use of ICT in our teaching, then a visual language or a visual impetus is that much more exciting for, I think, the students. So if we are able to take paintings and photographs and other items of the fine arts into our classroom and make an interconnectivity between what we are teaching and what is happening, and these keys and these resources might make our teaching more interesting and exciting. So as it's there in the slide, I am a teacher of English literature. I've been teaching literature for many years now, and I will take you through this presentation now. But I begin with a very interesting thing, which has always kind of confounded me in some ways, and it has been a starting point of a lot of discussion and a lot of interesting ideas. That is Plato, 380 towards the end of the 4th century BC. The great Athenian, the great Greek philosopher, on whose ideas most of Western philosophy kind of anchors itself or has the fulcrum in Plato. Now, Plato, of course, is discussing the ideas of Socrates as he had heard them in his book, The Republic, which happens to be one of the most seminal kind of works of Plato. Now, when I study, I'm not a political scientist, so nor am I a philosopher, but I study Plato from a particular point of view, which is the book 10 of Plato's Republic. In book 10, Socrates, and Plato describes to us, Plato is giving us the dialogues. He is telling us what Socrates and Glaucon are discussing in terms of what is the role of the painter or the craftsman and the poet in the Republic. Of course, the poet in Plato's time is the tragedians, the great Greek tragedians. They are the poets. Now, Plato discusses and tells us that the artist, and he gives us an example of the carpenter. He says the carpenter, like the artist, is an imitator of the ideal object, of the real object, which is an abstract idea. There is an idea about a chair or a couch, and all the chairs and couches that we see are imitation of that ideal single chair, that idea of the chair. So the craftsman is an imitator of the idea, of the ideal idea of the couch or the chair. Now, if an artist paints that chair, then he is one more degree removed from the ideal. And what he shows us is not the truth, not the real chair, but only an illusion. Now, this is a very important idea where actually Plato kind of banishes artists and poets because he says that, you know, artists and poets are imitators, and they create illusions, and by these illusions you are taken away from meditating on truth, and therefore such people should not be in the ideal state, in the ideal republic. So Plato actually kind of rejects artists in the Republic in many ways. It's his disciple Aristotle who kind of brings back the artist and the role of the artist into the discussion later on, where Aristotle would assert that no, the real life, the real lived life, is as important as the Platonic ideal. So that's of course another discussion. But for me, this is very important and interesting that a philosopher, Plato, actually kind of rejects and does not want artists to be there because they are taking you away from the contemplation of the abstract idea. So, having said that, I mean, if we begin here as our starting point, I would uh, interestingly and surprisingly take you 15 almost 1800 years later on to a completely different world altogether. Again in Europe, very near Greece, and we are now in Italy. We are now in Rome, and see what is happening in the later half of the 15th century and the early part of the 16th century in Rome. So this is the painting I wanted to discuss with you. This is a very famous painting in the Vatican in Rome. It's called the School of Athens, and this is a fresco by the great Renaissance artist who is kind of same. He's a contemporary, and he's considered to be the one of the three great Renaissance artists of Europe, along with Michelangelo and Leonardo Vinci. This is Raphael. His dates are 1509 to 15. The time he did this painting was 1500, and between 1509 and 1511, early part of the 16th century. But he lived from 1483 to 1520. Almost 100 years before Shakespeare, but almost a contemporary of Copernicus. I'm sorry, of Columbus, who was at this time, at this very time, discovering what he thought was the West, in the India, and he called it West Indies. He had just landed in Bahamas and discovered America. At one point, the discovery of the New World is happening, and the other point, we have Raphael making this fascinating painting. It's called the School of Athens. I'll now show you. It's a fresco. It's a painting on the wall that Raphael did, and this is how it looks. If you ever go to the Vatican, in this room, when you go, it's called the Apostolic Palace within the Vatican, Rome. There are four walls, and there are three walls, and all the three walls have these different types of paintings. But this one, called the School of Athens by Raphael, is one of the most important ones. So when I show you a closer picture of this painting, it's like this. It's like this. You will see in this painting the interaction. This is Raphael's view of what a kind of a clubhouse in Athens would have been during Plato's time. He is kind of imagining a place where some of the best scientists, some of the best mathematicians, philosophers, thinkers come and discuss. It's a place where it's kind of a clubhouse, intellectual clubhouse, where you come. So everybody is sitting and discussing. People are walking in, and in the center in the center of this painting is in orange, that is Plato, and in blue, that is Aristotle. So if you study this painting, and we don't have time to study it in great details, if you study this painting, you will find that Raphael does a very fascinating thing. He brings different thinkers, artists, philosophers, mathematicians, scientists from different time scales, and brings them all together under this fascinating, fantastic roof, this grand roof of the Athenian school, and where you have Minerva on one side and Venus on one side. It's absolutely a grand place where all these people are sitting and talking and discussing. It is in some ways the greatest celebration of classical antiquity. It's the greatest celebration in Renaissance of the knowledge systems that were available in classical antiquity. This is in some ways Raphael's own kind of tribute to that. I'll briefly tell you. You must at some point go back to these paintings. They are available on the internet, and there are a lot of discussions on these paintings. You please have a look when you have the time. It's absolutely fascinating. You'll find that in the center is Plato. His hand is raised up, which means symbolically he thinks about things that are that are on the higher reality and on higher plane, the unchanging truth, the ideal. Whereas Aristotle, wearing blue, he has his hands kind of lower down, and therefore he looks at the material world, at the real world of real people, and he is discussing this dynamics of the ethereal with the real in the center of this very fascinating painting. You will also see that on the lower left there is Pythagoras, whose work is to do with maths. His work is to do with music of the stars. That's the idea of the music of the cosmos, the cosmic harmony that the Greeks talk about. And on the lower right, you'll find there's Ptolemy holding the sphere, and his understanding of the Earth, its movement. He believed that Earth was in the center of the universe, and all other celestial objects roamed around, moved around the Earth. It's only later on, again, during a little before Raphael, that in the Renaissance you had Copernicus, who disputed the idea and proved that no, it is not a geocentric world, so to say, but a heliocentric world. But if I am to teach Renaissance, if I am to teach the politics of the church and of the monarchy, if I am to talk about the sociology that was there in the Renaissance time, if I was to talk about Shakespeare, if I was to talk about any one of the Renaissance poets, if I was to talk about the history of the Renaissance, I would probably use this painting as a starting point for that discussion, because it gives me a very fascinating entry point in Renaissance studies to take me back to what Renaissance actually meant in terms of rational thought, the importance given to rational thought, to the importance given to the meditations on the mysteries of the universe and of existence of man itself. I mean, if I'm to teach Shakespeare's tragedies and the ruminations of some of those heroes, including, say, Hamlet, about what is man, then I must go back to this philosophical discussion about what is man and what is his role and his position within the universe and the society that begins so far back, 1500 years ago, in the amphitheaters and in the clubhouses of Athens. So this painting has always fascinated me, and it's an amazingly imaginative kind of representation. Obviously, Raphael didn't see how it was at that time. He could have only reconstructed it from his imagination. But it's a terrific tribute to the relationship that Renaissance thought and Renaissance ideas, European Renaissance ideas had, and its connection to the classical antiquity. So I begin here. So Plato may have banished the artist in the Republic, or he may have said that the artist is not important because he takes you away. But here is an artist who is bringing back into our consciousness historically and in many ways intellectually what that debate and that discussion meant in terms of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, and the entire Western philosophy and thinking that happens after that, and including political thought that emerges. So after this, I mean, these are random choices of paintings. I have not kind of made any this thing, but these are some of the favorite ones that I have, and I wanted to share with you. And I hope you know you will enjoy what we do in the next half an hour or so. The next painting that I wanted to show you was this much later, another almost 500 years away from Raphael. We come to this very fascinating painting by Edvard Munch in 1893. Now, Munch was his time period is 1863 to 1944, so he spans the later half of the 19th century and the first half of the 20th century. But in his life as a child, he must have seen the First World War, and as a grown-up, he must have also experienced what the Second World War was like. So he is a Norwegian artist, and this painting happens to be one of the most famous paintings in Western art, modern paintings, if you can call it. And you can see this painting. It is a kind of a eerie, terrifying kind of a representation of what he calls, the painting is called the Scream. He has said at some point that he wanted to express the subtle state of the mind. Okay, the scream as in relation to the mind. Okay, so all the, you know, you can see the artist trying to portray fear, anguish, melancholy, death, horror, so many emotions put together. There is the most important thing here in this painting is that people say it's really not about the scream is not what the man is screaming, or that figure is screaming. We don't even know if it's a man or a woman. The scream is actually in the sky. The scream is it's the sky which is screaming. Munch writes at one point that you know, he saw this suddenly this red sky, and for him this red sky kind of created a sense of terror and horror in him, which he expressed. This is one of the fine examples of expressionist art. You know, it's a bloody sky. It's red, and then it's flaming, it's burning. Yet, you know, this particular character, human figure in the front, in the foreground, is shocked. You can see two more figures at the back, on the side. They don't seem to be shocked or anything. They're casual in that. So it also tells us that you know, how the world affects you is an individualistic experience. You know, it's how you look at the world, you know, how you interpret the world. In many ways, I could think of Munch's this painting in 1893 as a kind of a beginning of modernism in many ways. Of course, Renaissance can also be seen as the beginning of modernism, but a certain kind of modernism, a certain kind of looking at the world from a point of view which is individualistic, and which is which is to do with the individual's mind, comes here. Remember, this is the time when we have contesting philosophical ideas, political, social ideas which have come up. By 1893, Marxism is there, existentialism has come in, Freud's work has now come in, Jung and Freud, both of them. There is a lot of work on symbolism. In fact, many people say that if you look at symbolist paintings or impressionistic paintings, which are around this time, Munch is a kind of he is kind of breaking those softer, milder tones of impressionism and symbolism, and giving us a far more experiential thing about what the world really is. There is no romanticizing nature anymore. He doesn't want to the nature itself is now something that gives you fear and terror, so this is completely different. So again, this painting can be used. I often use this painting to start my classes on modernism, on ideas that impact modern thinking, which could be of existentialism, of expressionism, the starting of cinema, many ideas which come at this point of time, towards the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, and you'll soon have two world wars coming up. If this painting precedes the world wars, precedes the horrors of the two world wars, but it in some sense anticipates the way the world is shaping itself. So so Munch's Scream is, I think, a very fascinating kind of work, which one can kind of study and use while we teach social sciences. The next one is this painting, which is again a very famous painting. It is a painting by Salvador Dali. By the way, I'm sure there are many amongst you who are already familiar with these paintings. It's not something new. These are very famous paintings, and you may have already studied it. My contention is that we need, as teachers, as people engaging with our students, we need to engage with these paintings, with these visual representations, in order to expand and make our pedagogy, whatever we are teaching, a little bit more exciting and interdisciplinary, and to bring in many more ideas. It helps us to bring in many more ideas. For example, in this painting, the idea of time, the idea of memory. This is a painting in 1931. Salvador Dali, who was a Spanish artist, he made this. Again, this is a painting between the two world wars. The First World War is over, the second one. One of the most important thing here is distortion. How things are distorted. Dali at one point says he wanted imagining my complete irrationality. Now, the point here is that Dali is trying to tell us, this painting tells us, that irrationality is as important as rationality, if not more important. And this is what psychology is telling us. Okay, so the Surrealist movement, which started around 1924, we put that date because there's a famous essay called "The Surrealism: The Manifesto to Surrealism" by André Breton. It is said that he's the kind of starts, but there are many other surrealist schools who have their own definitions. But Breton's definition of the surrealism is to do with the accession of the unconscious mind, thoughts, memories, dreams, urges, even nightmares. What it is to go into the irrationality of your mind, as opposed to the rather rational world that we have. Very interestingly, time is supposed to be one of the most rational things. It sets our world. We know exactly what to do when, so to say. But time is not like that in our dreams. You don't know what flows into what, and that melting sense of time, that amorphous nature of time, as is being discussed in many philosophies of this time of the early 20th century, is kind of Dali tries to capture that all those ideas in this painting. So there is this clock which is kind of melting, which is distorted, which is not stiff, which is, he talks about the clocks as as French cheese, something which is malleable, something which is not hard and fixed. Okay, so time as something which is not hard and fixed, something which flows. This is the time when we talk about the stream of consciousness. New forms of writing come up. We are increasingly looking at thought processes, how to capture thought processes, and again, a very different way of looking at individual and the society, his relationship with the society, and how the individual. This is very soon you will, this is the time when Camus writes The Outsider, and many other such texts which come up at this time from the existentialists as well as from other writers who are writing at this time. This sense of decay, the figure in the center is a kind of decaying figure. We don't know exactly if it's a horse or an animal or a human being, seems dead, decaying. Even time and decay, something that is rotting. So the whole idea is that you are not in control of things. Things are out of your control, and we seem, human beings seem to pride or to have this kind of assertion that we can control everything, though the artist here is saying, sorry, you can't. There are things which are simply beyond your understanding, and he's giving a kind of visualization to that idea. So Dali's Persistence of Memory is again a very important, historically important painting. It again brings us into the very center of modernist discussions which are going on in the early part of the 20th century, and it can again be a very, very important entry point to look into this whole idea of deconstructing the mechanism of time and the flow of time. This is Dali's painting. I come to the next one, which is again a very, very famous, world famous painting. It's by Picasso, who is also a Spanish artist, writing, painting at the same time as Dali is in 1937. They are friends, but they paint very differently. If Dali is a surrealist, Picasso is often called a cubist artist. I will not go into the definitions of these many movements that were happening in the late 19th and early 20th century, but I want to bring this painting from a very, very different angle. This painting is called Guernica, and Guernica was a small town in Spain, which was bombed by the German forces, because General Franco, who was ruling, kind of asked the help of Hitler, and Hitler came. The German forces came and bombed this city. Picasso saw the ruins of this city, and from the ruins of this city, what he saw, what he experienced, this painting comes out. Now, it's a political statement. It's a very much a political statement, and Picasso, like Pablo Neruda of Chile, they were all involved in what was the Spanish Civil War, in which Spain was divided into two camps: the Republicans and the monarchists, or the supporters of who was Franco, or the military and the aristocrats who had got together. This great civil war that took place, kind of excited the whole world, particularly people who felt that this would be the starting point of the rule of the people. The people would come to power, and imperialists and controllers like Franco would be defeated. It really did not happen. So there was a certain kind of fallout of that. But this painting remains a kind of a symbol, a kind of a expression of the anguish, of the terror, of the pain, of the sadness of war. This is one of the greatest anti-war paintings. So whenever we discuss anything about human strife and how it affects common human people, what it means in terms of losing life or being pained, or what happens to human beings when they're caught in the crossfires of war. Guernica is one of the best examples to tell us how the artist sees, imagines it. Okay, so if you this is a painting about death. This is a painting, there's a lot of frenzied action here, but you will see people faces with their mouths open, their eyes kind of displaced, their hands in anguish raised up. They're the only figure which there's a horse which is dying. There are limbs broken in all places. There's a woman crying. There is a woman with a child, with a dead child, who is crying up to the sky. The agony and the anguish of war pictured in this monochromatic black and white painting, which is very, very big. It's a huge painting. It's 11 feet in width and almost 25 feet in length. It's a huge painting. Now, this gigantic painting trying to capture humanity's pain and cry is a masterpiece by itself. Okay, and it again helps me enter into these discussions of what the Spanish Civil War was, what the Second World War was about, how it affects human beings, what war does to common people, the destruction, the death, and so on and so forth. These are, again, as I said, I could use this if I was teaching poetry about the between the First and the Second World War. I could use this to teach existential literature. I could use this painting to teach many social and political thoughts that were there going on at that time. After all, artist is a part of a society, and he reflects and he shows what is going on in the society at that time. So I leave you with, I show you this painting of Guernica, which is again one of my one of the most important paintings. After, these are just sample paintings which I'm sharing with you. Now I can take you to something which is happening much closer to us, which is in India. And I just have two representative paintings to again take you to two different ideas in India, in Indian context. And they are this. One is a painting by Raja Ravi Varma, 1848. This is Draupadi's Vastaharan. I don't have to tell you the story, the details about this story. This from Mahabharata. We are all aware of what this story is. But this is one of the first representations of that story in painting by Raja Ravi Varma. Ravi Varma was the first Indian artist to actually use Western methods, Western art styles, to depict scenes from Indian classical literature and Indian ways of life. Now, why this is important is this. If you look at the date, 1898, this is very close to the formation of the Indian National Congress. This is very close to what is happening in India towards the end of the 19th century, and the growing consciousness of nationalism that is happening in India at that time. There is, Bankim Chandra has already written his Anand Mat, and people are reading it. There are many other movements which are happening in India. And there is a slow but very steady consciousness which is rising that India as a whole needs to oppose what is obviously foreign control, Western control. By the time Gandhi comes back in the first half of the 20th century, and by the time you come to Jallianwala Bagh in 1919, a lot of things will have happened, and the trigger for the national movement would have been taken and would have happened, and there was no going back. But these are the first stages. This is Raja Ravi Varma's paintings. Ravi Varma's paintings. He had a lithograph. He had a printing press. So all his paintings, he was able to print them, and then he was able to sell them across the country. It's like what we do with calendar art. He became extremely popular. His paintings were there. Everybody, you didn't have to buy it in a museum or something like that. His prints were available everywhere. He was actually touching a very, very sensitive chord of the Indians, in the sense he was bringing back to to Indians, what would be considered as Indianness, our own stories, our own characters. If the Europeans are painting their Bible and their stories from their own mythology, Greek mythology, we Indians we also have an equally, or if not equally, even better, a richer heritage culture, which we can now represent in this form. So there are many paintings which Raja Ravi Varma did. He touched the consciousness, the rising national consciousness of what constitutes India. Like, look, for example, here you'll find Draupadi wearing a sari. Now, sari was not a pan-Indian dress. Different parts of our country, even today, women wear differently. There are different ways of even wearing a sari. But Raja Ravi Varma is trying to tell us that this is the Indian woman, and this is the way she wears. And it's kind of, so much before when we had the serialization of Ramayana and Mahabharata on Doordarshan, almost 100 years before that, Ravi Varma, of course, he didn't have television, but he did have his painting. He was doing a similar kind of thing, bringing our heritage, bringing our classics into pan-Indian consciousness. Fantastic thing. I mean, if you want to look at nationalism and the many things that were associated with nationalism, Raja Ravi Varma would be a very important person to look into. Of course, he was using Western methods. Of course, he was using Western styles, but he was bringing in Indian themes and Indian stories. They're painting about Shakuntala. There are many other paintings. There's a painting about Sita and Ravan and Jatayu and all that. Popular stories which could be identified by Indians everywhere were part of his, and he was extremely popular and extremely venerated as an artist. Later on, about 15 years later, 1913, we will have Dada Saheb Phalke with the first film, which is Raja Harishchandra. Look at that. Even Raja Harishchandra was a kind of a counter, nationalist narrative in which he was saying, okay, you have your queen and all, look at our Raja, can you have a parallel to Raja Harishchandra? Look at him, that was the whole idea. I mean, it was very clear that he wanted to tell not only the Indian society, but everybody, that we have a fantastic king in Raja Harishchandra, the great giver, the great sacrificer, the nobility of this king, so that comes from our own history and our own culture. So he was and many things that the early Indian cinema did in terms of costumes, in terms of set design, and things were borrowed from how Raja Ravi Varma had kind of imagined. I mean, of course, he is imagining, Duryodhan's quote here. I mean, there was no other reference, so to say, but he imagined it. He imagined it in a contemporary way, and he showed us how it is. Look at the dresses these people were. I mean, that was sorry. That is the only way he could have done it. But it immediately clicked the minds, the imagination of the Indian masses, of the Indian people. And so again, I find Raja Ravi Varma, and one has been fortunate enough to see many of his original paintings in Bangalore and in Mysore, where his paintings are. So if you get a chance, you can go and see them. But he is a very important person, artist I often use when I talk about modern Indian literature, the rise of Indian nationalism, and the kind of literature that we were writing, along with Bankim Chandra on one side, and also political thoughts and ideas. And this is also the time we already have both Indian and foreign scholars who are working on ancient Indian texts, the Vedas and the Gita, and all of that is being translated, and so on and so forth. So this is an important thing. My last slide is this one. This is not very late, but kind of 50 years to Raja Ravi Varma. This by an artist in Bengal, Nandullah Bush. He was 1882 to 1966, rather a kind of modern artist. Now this painting is called New Clouds. New Clouds, and Nandullah Bush was the director of the Kala Bhavan, which was set up by Rabindranath Tagore in Shantiniketan. Kala Bhavan means the School of Art in Shantiniketan, and he set this thing up there. And he was the kind of founding principle of that thing. But Nandullah Bush was much inspired by Rabindranath's brother, Avanindranath, who actually began what was called the Bengal School of Art. Now, the Bengal School of Art, which is a very famous thing, is that they actually rebelled against Raja Ravi Varma kind of painting. Says, no, we will not do painting in the Western style. We will not pick up themes from ancient literature. We will paint common people in common colors, in its simplicity. Look at the simplicity of the lines of what is happening. We'll not talk about aristocracy and what the aristocracy. We'll talk about common people, the working people, the farmers, the land, the village, the India that is there. So this also is a part of a national consciousness. What is the India that is going to become free? Okay, in 1937. The India that is going to become free is an India which resides in the villages, in the simplicity of its people, in their hard work, in the nature of how they are, in the way they dress. Look at this. This sari is very different from Raja Ravi Varma's Draupadi, but this is another representation. This is India. Avanindranath had studied a lot of Indian art in the caves of the Ajanta and Ellora, and he had seen what could now be seen as what could be now described as an Indian mode of painting. So or art, so to say. So very soon you'll have Indian Indian thinkers, philosophers, Anand Kumar Swami, and many other people who will talk about Indian art in a critical way, critical in the sense, understand it as a whole, as what it means from ancient art to modern art, and all the other strains that come in. So, I'm sharing this. This is a very beautiful painting. I'm sharing this with you as a contrast to the kind of painting that Nandullah Bush would be very close to another artist in Bengal school, who was Ram Kinkor Bes. Ram Kinkor was a prolific sculptor. He made some of the most fascinating sculptures in his own way. Not realistic. Again, trying to go to the heart, to the essence of of the subject or of the person he was sculpting or he was doing. So with this, I kind of, by the way, Nandullah Bush's drawings, and the why I'm stressing on the simplicity of it all is that Tagore wrote a book called Sahaj Path, which means reading simply, or reading made simple, and he wrote this for young children. So that they could read, and it's like an early beginners book, and much of the illustrations of that Sahaj Path book was done by Nandullah Bush, bringing into art simplicity, innocence, which was being which was a kind of reflective of the innocent Indianness that is there with us. Again, you can put it within the discussion, the framework of discussion on nationalism and the Indian national movement, and many other things that were happening philosophically and sociologically that was happening at this time. So, friends, this is what I wanted to show you, and this is my submission to you. The idea is basically to come to close to you and to share with you what I generally often do while I'm in class. While teaching English literature, I pick up something, some visual thing, and make it as my entry point to think, and that is the interface, because the visual gives me many dimensions where I can work with. I can talk about so many things. For example, in the Renaissance painting, we didn't talk, but we can talk about it. The oil colors that Raphael were using, or the frescoes that he was making with porcelain. What was the technology that the West had developed in order to make those paintings? Rembrandt comes a little later. They all were painting. What were these colors? What is the technology that is going on at that time? What are the brushes? How were they made? This is a completely new thing. It will take you to a different study altogether, but it's there. It's there. How are those canvases made? What was the thing? Which oil was made? Was it linseed oil? Was it some other oil? The technicality of it brings you to a different discussion of its time, and gives you an idea as to what was happening at that time in terms of history, in terms of society, in terms of how people worked and how things were done. So it engages you with many. Today we do a lot of things which are which happens because we have the technology to do it. So in every sphere, you have to have a platform, interface, which will help you to move from your core discipline or your core idea that you're discussing to something else, and bring all that in, so that at least the class in that sense, I think, becomes more interesting. So thank you very much. I hope whatever I have said or whatever I have discussed with you would be useful, and you're most welcome to get back to me. I'm sure the organizers will be sharing emails and other things, other details. So if we can carry on this discussion with more, and I'll be most happy to engage with you, and also to enrich myself with suggestions and ideas that can come. You can also have contention with me and not agree with me, which is also absolutely acceptable. So once again, thank you, all of you, for being with me and helping me to share my ideas with you. Thank you, the organizers of this refresher course, for having invited me. Thank you very much, and bye, and good evening.